The email arrived while I was in the middle of grading midterm papers. Subject line, "Sorry, not sorry," from my husband, David. "I've accepted the position in Seattle. Taking the kids with me. My lawyer will contact yours. This is for the best. We both know you've always put your career first anyway." I stared at my laptop screen, the cursor blinking steadily against the stark white background of his message. 10 years of marriage dismissed in 3 sentences. My red pen hovered over a student's essay on Chaucer, a tiny drop of ink blooming on the page. I carefully capped the pen, set it down, and took a deep breath. The wall clock in my office ticked loudly in the silence. 4:27 p.m. I had exactly 33 minutes before my department meeting. I opened my bottom desk drawer and removed a folder labeled Contingencies, created 6 months ago when I'd found the text messages between David and a Seattle-based dean of admissions. Messages discussing not just his potential new position, but the excellent school district near her home. Inside the folder was a checklist. Item 1, call Marianne Dixon, family law attorney. "It's happening," I said when she answered. "He's taking the kids to Seattle. I'll file the emergency motion to prevent removal from the state immediately," Marianne replied, her voice calm and steady. "Do you have access to your joint accounts?" "Yes," I confirmed, already logging into our banking portal on my laptop. "Transfer your half now, before he thinks to freeze you out." I executed the transfers I'd planned months ago, watching as half of our savings moved to the account I'd opened at a different bank. Not a penny more than my fair share. I was a professor of ethics, after all. By the time I arrived at my department meeting, I had completed the first 5 items on my checklist. My colleagues would never have guessed from my composed discussion of curriculum changes that my personal life had just imploded. Professor Katherine Chen, 42, mother of 2, was about to become the villain in her husband's narrative of liberation. David had always been the charismatic one in our relationship, the handsome philosophy professor who could captivate a lecture hall of undergraduates with his animated discourse on existentialism. I was the quieter literature professor whose close readings and methodical analyses earned respect rather than adoration. When we'd met at an academic conference 12 years ago, I'd been drawn to his energy, his passion. He'd been drawn to my stability, my thoughtfulness, or so he'd said. Now apparently those same qualities made me cold, career-obsessed, an obstacle to his happiness. I checked my watch as I unlocked our front door that evening, 7:15 p.m. The house was silent, no children's footsteps, no television murmuring in the background, just emptiness. A note on the kitchen counter explained that David had taken Emma and Leo to his mother's for the night to give me space to process things. How considerate of him! I walked calmly through each room, taking inventory. Family photos still hung on the walls. The children's rooms looked untouched, but David's closet was half empty. His toiletries gone from our bathroom. Not a spontaneous decision then. He'd been planning this for weeks, maybe months. I sat down at our dining room table, a wedding gift from his parents, and opened my laptop. Time for checklist item 6, documentation. I created a folder and began saving everything. His email, screenshots of our joint account balances before and after my transfers, a spreadsheet of our assets, the mortgage statement showing both our names, the deed to the house that had been my grandmother's, which I'd inherited before our marriage and had kept in my name despite David's repeated suggestions to add him. My phone chimed with a text from David. "I hope you're not going to make this difficult. The kids are excited about Seattle." I didn't respond. Instead, I continued my documentation, adding his text to the growing file. He had always underestimated my meticulousness, teased me about my excessive planning. Now that trait would serve me well. By midnight, I had completed most of my checklist. I slept in the guest room, unwilling to lie in the bed we'd shared for a decade. In the morning, I would face the hardest part, telling Emma and Leo that their father wanted to take them 800 miles away from me. "But why can't you come too?" Emma asked, her 9-year-old face scrunched in confusion. We sat at her favorite ice cream shop, a neutral territory I'd suggested for this conversation. The question hit me like a physical blow. "Who told you that?" I asked, keeping my voice gentle. Leo, at 7, was more direct. "Is it because you love your books more than us?" Leo stirred his melting ice cream. "Dad said you always choose your work over family." I set my spoon down carefully. "That's not true, Leo. I love you and Emma more than anything in the world." "Then why aren't you coming to Seattle with us?" Emma persisted. "I'm not going to Seattle," I explained. "And neither are you, at least not permanently. This is our home. You're Your school is here, your friends are here, my job is here. But Dad already enrolled us in our new school, Emma said. He showed us pictures. They have a garden where the kids grow vegetables. This was news to me, another piece of evidence that David had been planning this for months. I added it to my mental file. That sounds wonderful for visits, I said, but we need to talk to a judge before any big decisions are made about where you'll live. Sometimes when parents disagree, a judge helps decide what's best for the children, I explained, trying to sound calmer than I felt. Both children looked alarmed. A judge? Leo echoed. Dad said you wouldn't understand his need for growth, Emma said, repeating what was clearly an adult phrase she'd overheard. Did he? I smiled at her. Well, I understand more than he thinks. The emergency hearing was scheduled for the following week. In the meantime, David returned to the house with the children, maintaining a performance of normalcy while avoiding direct conversation with me. I continued teaching my classes, meeting with students, and attending faculty meetings as if my world hadn't tilted on its axis. At home, I cooked dinner, helped with homework, and read bedtime stories while David worked late at his campus office. Each night after the children were asleep, I updated my documentation and consulted with Marianne. David had hired Gerald Winston, a flamboyant attorney known for aggressive tactics. He'll try to paint you as the cold academic mother, Marianne warned during one of our calls. They'll emphasize every conference you attended, every late night at the office. I've never spent a night away from the children except for 3 conferences in 10 years, I replied. I have documentation for each one, including David's emails agreeing to watch the children. Excellent. And what about his trips? I pulled up the spreadsheet I'd created. 27 overnight trips in the past 5 years. 7 were with the Academic Philosophers Association, where he serves on the board. The rest were conferences or guest lectures. I have emails for all of them. And who took care of the children during those times? I did, except for 2 occasions when we both traveled for work, and my mother stayed with them. Marianne made an appreciative sound. Your record keeping is impeccable, Katherine. I have always kept detailed records, I said. It's the literature professor in me. Everything is a text to be analyzed. In this case, that habit might save your family. 3 days before the hearing, David finally cornered me in the kitchen after the children were in bed. This could be so simple, Katherine, he said, leaning against the counter while I loaded the dishwasher. We could have an amicable divorce. I take the kids to Seattle during the school year. You get them for summers and holidays. Everyone gets what they want. I placed a glass carefully in the rack. And what exactly do I want in this scenario? Freedom to focus on your career without the daily responsibilities of parenting. He said it as if he were offering me a gift. You've always put your work first. I closed the dishwasher and turned to face him. Is that what you've told yourself to justify what you're doing? That I don't want to be a mother? He had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. I'm just saying your priorities have always been clear. My priority has always been creating a stable home for our children while pursuing meaningful work. Just like your priority was supposedly building our family together until Seattle offered you a chance to reinvent yourself with someone new. His eyes widened. What are you talking about? Dean Lisa Hargrove, I said calmly, the woman who's been texting you about school districts near her home. David's face flushed. You went through my phone? I didn't need to. You left it unlocked on the kitchen counter 6 months ago. The messages were visible on your screen. I dried my hands on a dish towel. Did you really think I wouldn't notice when my husband of 10 years suddenly started talking about a fresh start in a city where he'd mysteriously made a connection? It's not what you think, he started. It doesn't matter what I think. What matters is that you won't be taking our children across the country without my consent. His expression hardened. We'll see what the judge has to say about that. The courthouse was imposing, all marble and echoing hallways. I wore a modest navy dress, professional but not cold, Marianne had advised. David arrived in a suit I'd never seen before, slightly too fashionable for the setting. Inside the courtroom, Gerald Winston immediately went on the offensive, painting David as the nurturing parent who organized playdates and attended PTA meetings while I supposedly buried myself in research. Professor Chen has authored 3 books and numerous articles during her marriage, Winston said to the judge. Meanwhile, Der Harrison has limited his publishing to focus on hands-on parenting. Their roles have been clear. When Marianne's turn came, she was methodical. Your Honor, we've prepared a detailed accounting of both parents' involvement in the children's lives, she said, submitting my carefully assembled documentation. You'll note that Dr. Chen has never missed a parent-teacher conference, has volunteered in classrooms every year, and has adjusted her schedule to be home by 4:30 p.m. each day to supervise homework and activities. The judge, a woman in her 60s with shrewd eyes, reviewed the materials. And what about Dr. Harrison's claim that Dr. Chen's career always comes first? The evidence shows otherwise, Your Honor, Marianne replied. Dr. Chen has limited her conference attendance to 3 events in 10 years, while Dr. Harrison has attended 27 overnight professional events during the same period. During his absences, Dr. Chen maintained full parental responsibilities. I watched David shift uncomfortably in his seat. Furthermore, Marianne continued, Dr. Harrison has already attempted to enroll the children in Seattle schools without Dr. Chen's knowledge or consent, demonstrating a pattern of unilateral decision-making that undermines co-parenting. The judge turned to David's attorney. Mr. Winston, did your client enroll the children in Seattle schools before this hearing? Winston conferred briefly with David. My client was merely researching options, Your Honor. That's not what the children reported, Marianne interjected. They specifically stated that their father showed them enrollment confirmation. The judge's expression darkened. I'd like to see any documentation of this enrollment attempt. There was a painful silence as Winston whispered with David, who reluctantly produced his phone and pulled up an email. The judge reviewed it and looked directly at David. Dr. Harrison, this appears to be a confirmed enrollment, not research. Did you misrepresent this to the court? David swallowed visibly. I was trying to prepare for what I believed would be best for everyone. By circumventing court procedures and your wife's parental rights? The judge's tone was icy. I felt no satisfaction at David's discomfort, only sadness that it had come to this. After 3 hours of testimony, including reviews of our parenting schedules, financial contributions, and involvement in the children's activities, the judge announced her decision. The court denies Dr. Harrison's request to relocate the children to Seattle. Both children will remain in their current home and school district, with Dr. Chen as the primary residential parent. She looked sternly at David. Dr. Harrison may pursue his career opportunity in Seattle if he chooses, with liberal visitation rights and extended vacation time with the children. David's face registered shock. He had been so certain of his victory, so convinced that his narrative of the career-obsessed mother would prevail. Outside the courtroom, while our attorneys discussed visitation schedules, David approached me. You've ruined everything, he hissed. I turned down other opportunities for this position. I met his gaze steadily. No, David, you risked everything for this position. There's a difference. In the months that followed, our divorce proceeded with David commuting between Seattle and our hometown for his visitation weekends. Lisa Hargrove, it turned out, had been less interested in a divorced father of 2 than in the unattached philosopher she'd imagined him to be. That relationship fizzled within months. I continued teaching, writing, and parenting.